Alright, I think everything is working now. Maybe. That's turned off, that's turned off, that's turned on, and I think the video is no longer set to private. I don't know why it defaulted to private, but for some reason, all the chat and everything was turned off, and I think that it was undiscoverable. So, now that it's public again, maybe I'll actually get, people to come in, so we'll see. So, I already see that I do have at least one person in the chat. Let's go ahead and get this thing started. Hello! Shadowcat back, and we are back to work in Warhammer, and we are done! Finally done! With all the warrior paths. There was a lot of them. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I enjoyed doing them. They were a lot of fun. Because it was a way to find out really just how different they could all be, and to really flex that creativity. Which, that's what I do. That's what I'm good at. I'm a creative person. And so, anytime I get to exercise that is a good day. But today we get a little bit more experimental because we're done with all the warrior paths. No more combat-oriented stuff. At least, not for a while, at least. At least I think. Because we're going to go into the rest of the Eldar paths, and I'm not sure if any of them are going to be combat-related. Like, the Path of Command, I'm sure is probably combat-related in some way, but I don't know. And we're going to have to get a little bit inventive with some of these because there's not going to be a lot of information. I've got two sources for the Paths of the Eldar. One of them is the Warhammer 40k wiki, one of them is the Lexicanum. Both of them have information on the Eldar paths. None of them are terribly comprehensive, though. At least, when it comes to things that are not warrior-related. So we're going to do the best we can here. Before we get started, though, I see that JP is in the chat. Hello, JP. Good to see you here. Maybe we'll even get to see some new people. I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and pop out my chat here so that I can read it better. There we go. I can read that now. Alright, so let's get started then. We're going to need to have our spreadsheet. And we're going to need to have our browser. Well, that's not what I wanted to have up there. That's the YouTube thing. I mean, I guess it could have been porn, but whatever. That's the YouTube thing. You don't care about that. So we're going to go to the wiki. And we're going to see what else we can do here. I'm going to drag this window over here like this. There we go. Now I can read it. Alright, so we did the warrior path. That is one of many paths that the Eldar have. And it says that the most extensive path that they have is the Path of the Warrior. Okay, we can see that here. After that is the Path of the Seer. So perhaps we should do that one next, since it's the one that's most expansive. So Path of the Warrior, we did all of this already. We did the Aspect Warriors, and they're all fun. The Exarchs, they're just basically, level 20 Aspect Warriors, so they're fine. Now, Path of the Seer. Oof. So the Path of the Seer, they are essentially the most potent form of Eldari Psykers. They are members of the Eldari race who have passed through the many different Ascianari paths, which allows them to master the full power of their minds and thus command their psychic powers without fear of attracting daemons or creating rifts within the warp when they unleash their abilities in their most potent form. Well, I already see a problem with this here, and that's that we haven't done psychic power yet. Like, I don't know what our psychic power system is. We made a grid, and it's kind of a preemptory grid so far about how to establish psychic power and psychic sensitivity, but that's all we have so far. And so making an entire Psyker thing, I don't know if we can do it. Yeah, because all we have right now is this. And we use this for the Force weapons. But without having a proper system in place for how to do Psykers, I don't know if we can do the Seer. So we may have to skip this one until we do the system for Psykers. Which is going to be really interesting because we're going to do a lot of research into what psychic abilities already exist. And then we're going to have to turn that into a system that we can use. I imagine that the Psyker system is going to be something similar to what we did with the Wheel of Time. Where in the Wheel of Time module, you would roll to see how strong you were with the one power. And then you were given a pool of points. And with that pool of points, you would be allowed to literally weave your own abilities to create almost any effect that you would want. I think that we're going to probably do something similar with Psykers, because Psykers are just pulling power from the warp. They're literally channeling the warp through them and into the material realm, and that's how they get to reshape reality. This is a change from things like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder, where you're given a big book of spells. Okay, if you're a wizard, sometimes they're literal books, but the reason why in Dungeons and Dragons you have things like Audeluk's Freezing Sphere or Mordenkainen's Dancing Sword or things like that. The reason these have names is because in the history of those were actual wizards. I mean, this gets really deep into the lore of Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. And it's not lore that you would normally get into because it happened a long time ago. But every single spell, from, a Ray of Frost all the way up to Wish, had to be created by some wizard or sorcerer in the history of Faerun or whatever it is that Pathfinder takes place in. I'm not even sure about the setting. I just use the mechanics. So every spell in there was created by some wizard, and it was written down. So somewhere in history, when they were just learning how to use magic and to tap into the Weave, which is the network of magic that goes through the Dungeons and Dragons universe, some wizard figured out that if I say these words, if I make these gestures, and if I hold a little bit of this substance, something happens. I mean, I don't know exactly how it happens, but energy from the Weave is pulled out, and I can now direct that energy, which is super cold, and I can point it at a single point. And so they wrote that down, and that became known as Ray of Frost. And so every single wizard or sorcerer or witch or warlock or whatever in Dungeons and Dragons has learned how to cast the same spell in roughly the same way generation after generation after generation, which is why there is a set spell book. In the Wheel of Time, in the Wheel of Time, there is nothing like that. You can learn how to do certain weaves to achieve certain outcomes. Like if you want to heal somebody, you need to channel air, spirit, and water. If you just want to blow something up, you can just channel, say, air and fire. But there's no set ways to necessarily do something, and even in the books, people will find different weaves to achieve the same effects. It's much more open. When it comes to making the Seers and making Psykers in general, Warhammer does have a set number of abilities that Psykers are allowed to use. And so we're going to have to look into those, but they're not necessarily like spells. These are just things that they know how to do. And they're things that are common. So for example, if you've got two Psykers, you've got an old Psyker and a young Psyker, okay? No, they do not walk into a bar. Okay, they might walk into a bar, but that's for later. Anyway, you got an older Psyker, you've got a younger Psyker, you got a veteran and somebody who's green. And your veteran Psyker is just like, all right, I'm going to teach you how to blow something up. And so they open themselves to the warp, and they let themselves become a conduit for warp energies. They direct those energies, and they blow up a box. And they say, okay, now you do it. The green Psyker is going to get kind of like the basic idea, but they're going to have to figure it out themselves. It's not like they can sit down with a book and just say, oh, well, I need to make this incantation, and I need to gesture my arms in this direction, and maybe hold this holy symbol. No, that's not how that works. So doing the Seers right now, I think is going to be basically impossible until we know how do Psykers work. Because once we know how they work and the mechanics involved, then we can kind of start to twist those things. I mean, we can say that a Seer can channel a little bit more of the warp, and so they can get a little bit more power, or maybe a bit more range, or a bit more finesse. I don't know yet. We haven't done it. So, we're going to have to skip that one for now. So I'm just going to come over here, and I'm going to color you yellow. Just because we got to remember that we looked at it, but we didn't do it. So if we can't do the Seer, what's next? Far Seers are just better Seers, so we're still in the same area. Warlocks, Spirit Seers. Okay, here we go. The Path of the Outcast, then. This seems to be the next biggest one. That's why it's got like its own section here, whereas the rest of the known paths just get like a paragraph. So let's look at the Path of the Outcast. So at times the rigid constraints of the Ascianari path prove intolerable for even an Ascianari to bear. Such individuals leave their craft worlds behind and become Eldari outcasts. Many Ascianari spend many standard years or solar decades as outcasts before they return to the Ascianari path, if they ever do. Outcasts must bear the terrible burden of their heightened Eldari consciousness and emotions without their psychic protection offered by the discipline of the Ascianari path. Set free within the galaxy, outcasts are dangerously vulnerable to all manner of hazards. Their psychically powerful minds are a beacon for daemons, in particular to she who thirsts. She is thirsty. She is thirsty. Only Eldari of especially strong willpower can survive for long as outcasts. After years of adventure and wandering or sailing the sea of the void aboard the Eldari Corsair fleets, most Eldari outcasts eventually return to the safety and security of the Ascianari path. There are many different kinds of outcasts. They leave their craft worlds and live elsewhere, often wandering the galaxy and visiting the worlds of mankind or the Exodites. They are welcome aboard other craft worlds only briefly, for their minds are dangerously unbound and can attract predators from the warp. Daemons or other warp entities can home in on the mind of an outcast, then lodge into their psycho-supportive environment that is the craft world's Wraithbone core, perhaps even threatening the Infinity Circuit itself. Outcasts are also disruptive in another way, for their presence can distract the young and inexperienced from their paths due to their romantic tales of freedom and adventure among the stars. Given that we're like planning a tabletop adventure here, I gotta say, this is sounding like your typical adventurer. Some Eldari yearn for the undiscovered vista of open space. They join fleets of exploration and disappear into the untraveled reaches of the labyrinthine dimension that is the Webway. Most never return, though a lucky few return home laden with alien treasures. They also bring tales of new alien worlds, extraordinary discoveries, and great battles fought at the very edge of the galaxy. It is not unknown for the humans of the Imperium of Man to come in contact with outcasts, for these are the only Eldari a human is likely to meet anywhere in the galaxy that is not a battlefield. The wildest of all the outcast Eldari become Corsairs and Raiders. They often continue to trade with and visit their home craft world or the Exodite worlds whilst plundering the vessels of humans, orcs, and even Eldari and other craft worlds. They may even act as mercenaries, hiring out their services to alien species, while many of their voyages of exploration can soon turn into military ventures in search of profit. So, somewhere out there's a crossover where there's an Eldar serving on a Ferengi vessel. I'm just gonna leave that one there and let that sink in. Also, this can go away. Let's see. As their homes and the memory of the Ascenary path become increasingly more distant, the naturally wild and more amoral character of the Eldari in their natural state can resurface. Because, I mean, that's basically Drukhari. Eldari pirates are quick-tempered and unpredictable, equally inclined to benevolence in one moment and bloody slaughter in the next. Corsair fleets, such as the Eldritch Raiders, the Steel-Eye Reavers, and the Sunblitz Brotherhood, are greatly feared by the people of those star systems they return to plunder again and again. So now I want you to picture an Eldar on a Klingon vessel, because that could also be a thing. Let's see, to the ignorant, which usually means humans, there is little that can be used to distinguish between the Ascenari of the craft worlds, Corsair fleets of the outcasts, and true Drukhari raiders. All are seen by mankind as a constant, elusive alien menace that can bring sudden death to the unwary. On occasion, Corsair fleets will join with vessels of the craft world to defend against a common threat to their species, while at other times, the craft world may aid its Corsair cousins in a mission against alien vessels, all of which adds to the common belief amongst most humans of the Imperium that Eldari as a whole are nothing more than an untrustworthy and feckless race of pirates. Yarr. The wanderlust that ultimately lurks in the heart of every Eldari can be expressed in many forms. Some leave for the Exodite worlds, where they live for many Terran years amongst the Exodite tribes, though they are rarely, if ever, fully accepted into their insular hosts. Other outcasts prefer to become rangers and travel from world to world to experience all that the wider galaxy has to offer. These rangers send news of what is occurring in the wider universe back to their home craft worlds. Okay, sure. So whatever they may experience or achieve while they are away, an Eldari outcast who returns to his craft world and takes up the path once more will be welcomed back with open arms as the prodigal son or daughter, all their sins forgotten as they take up the required disciplines of Ascenari life once more. There's a lot to go through there. However, it just kind of seems like they're generalists. So, when we discuss the outcast, there's a few things that really kind of strike out at me. The first of which is the whole lack of discipline thing. And I'm not sure what to do with that. So it says here that outcasts must bear the terrible burden of their heightened consciousness and emotions without the psychic protection offered by the discipline of the Asinari path. That, on its own, when I look back at the Eldar, we look at the Eldar subtype, they get immortality, they're psychers, they are emotionally intense. They have a hardened will. I'm starting to think that perhaps these things are actually mutually exclusive. Because the hardened will should represent their not being vulnerable to these emotions. So perhaps one of the things it will do is we'll take the emotionally intense away from your standard Eldari, and we'll give that to the outcast instead. So let's go ahead and put this up here. We're going to go with Path of the Outcast, which is different than if we spelled it with a K, because the Path of the Outcast is, you know, awesome, because I had that album. Actually, no. Here's what we're going to do. So that's already set up. Path of the Outcast. And I did save all these. We still have them. So it's going to be 1 through 12, 16, and 20. There we go. So, we have to get ourselves 6 things for our outcasts. And as I stated before, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take the emotionally intense here. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to delete this row. And we're going to paste this right here. So, emotionally intense. This will double all morale modifiers. So, anything that would give you just, you know, because you get, say, cheered on by a teammate, you get like a +2 on your normal attack. Well, guess what? Because you are an outcast, that's going to become a +4 now. However, it also means that anything that is used to demoralize you can hit extra hard. I see Blizz is in the chat. Hello, Blizz. Good to see you. And when we're talking about things like morale effects, when we go into like skills, particularly when I go down to Intimidate, still athletics, identify, yeah, here we go, Intimidate, Demoralize. So as a standard action, you can use Intimidate to cause a creature within 30 feet to become shaken for a number of rounds. This is a sense-dependent ability. The DC for this check is equal to +10, or 10 plus your opponents and stuff. Ooh, actually, you know what? I'm not even sure if Starfinder by default does morale bonuses. Ooh, I hadn't considered that really. I don't even know. Do they have morale bonuses? Because this just says they become shaken. All these stupid banners on the side. Stop taking up space. Even the ad still, or the closed ad still takes up space. You know what? You're making a really good argument for me to get a new ad blocker, because obviously I need one. All right, morale. Morale bonus. Here we go. Does this actually go anywhere? It doesn't seem to. So bonuses. So for example, you can get a +2 morale bonus to your saving throw because of an angelic being that protected them with an aura of metal. One of its special abilities. Yeah, so morale bonuses are totally a thing. Okay, never mind. We can leave it as is. It's good. So what else can we do? Well, at level 4, we have to assume that our outcast has been wandering for a little while. And so what will they have picked up? Well, I think we need a little bit of inspiration here. Why don't we go ahead and look at some of these character themes? And maybe we can borrow something from one of these. So themes that we have, we've got ace pilot, athlete, biotechnicians, bounty hunters, bureaucrats, colonists, corporate agents, cult hunters, cultist, cyberborn, death touch, dragon blood, dream prophet. Looking for something around here that'd be more like a wanderer. There's outlaws. That's kind of like it. Spacefarer could be really close. Yeah, why don't we take a look at the Spacefarer? Maybe we can get some ideas here. So Spacefarers, of course, they get to have, you know, themed knowledge that happens with every one of them. But an eager dabbler, you picked up a few tricks about all sorts of things that you know, even if you haven't formally studied them. You can often use this logic and intuition to your advantage. A +2 on skill checks you don't have any ranks in. Let's see, this does not allow you to attempt checks you are for trained only skills. I like that, actually. I do like that. And I think that I'm willing to do that. What is next? At level 12, Jack of all trades. You can do just about anything you put your mind to. You never let a lack of formal instruction between you and a task that needs handling. You can use all skills untrained, even if you could not normally do so. And when you roll a natural 20 while attempting a skill check, your bonus from Eager Dabbler increases to 4. And then Master Explorer. Scientifically noting the tiniest detail about a new place, including everything from apparent colors to incline grades to barometric, seismic, and even delicate readings, is absolutely invigorating to you. Up to twice per day while on an unexplored planet, you can spend 10 minutes exploring, mapping, and documenting new geographical features to recover 1 resolve point. This does not count as resting to regain stamina points. Interesting. I kind of want to give them all of these. And you know what? I can do that. So, I'm going to do that. So at level 4, I'm going to go ahead and give Eager Dabbler. And this is going to be per Spacefarer. Next, I'm going to go ahead and give Jack of all trades. Per Spacefarer, and at level 20, I'm going to give Master Explorer. Now that I've done that, that takes care of about half, and none of this is combat related. So we are able to give some combat bonuses while, you know, you're the outcast, because if you're the outcast, you've got to be taking care of yourself. Now, we've already got the whole emotionally intense thing, which will double all of your morale modifiers. So, generally speaking, if you get a morale modifier, it usually specifies what it is. So, the example that we had, and I had to go back for that. So, no, no, no. Here. So for the morale bonuses, let's see. Limited telepathy. Ah, here we go. So it says here, after all, the +1 morale bonus to attack rolls from the Envoy's Get 'em improvisation might mean the difference between landing a blow that fells a security robot or allowing it to remain standing and subsequently take out a wounded ally. So, while it's not necessarily a combat ability, if there was an Envoy or the Eldar happened to be an Envoy, and it decided to use this Get 'em ability that would give it a +1 morale bonus, at level 1, that becomes a +2. Which is significant. I mean, you gotta consider, you get a +1 bonus for every 2 ranks you have in your ability score. So you get 0 bonus at a 10 in your ability score. At 12, it's a +1. 14 is a +2. So on and so forth. Every time you get a +1 bonus in something, that is equivalent to jacking up your ability score by 2 points. That's significant, even if it is only temporary and only for one specific thing. 2 points, of course, is then an increase of 4 ability score points, and that's significant. The way leveling works, at least in all the games that I play, is you get 1 ability point every 4 levels per classic Dungeons and Dragons rules. Because, you know, it's a good system. I like it. Every time you would get a +2 morale bonus, that's equivalent to like 16 levels of progress. Temporarily. It's huge. It might not seem like much, but it represents a lot. I see Tux is in the chat. Hello, Tux. Good to see you. Even if you did kind of get the waving a little bit weird. It's alright though, we still accept you. So, at level 1, that can be somewhat of a combat-related thing, and I'm good leaving that as it is. So we need some more combat stuff. I wonder, since a lot of this is about improvising, what if we stick with that theme of improvising? I want to look at feats, particularly well, no, I'm going to look at all feats. And I want to look for improvise. Not improve. Is there no improvise in here? No, it just keeps digging at me. See, improved. I mean, if I have to go back to Pathfinder to get improvised stuff, I can, but I would have swore that we had improvised abilities here. I've already been through all of them. Okay. Then... what if... let's see, what if I look at these in detail? Nope, nothing there. Alright, fine. Have it your way. We'll go back to Pathfinder, okay? We'll go back to Pathfinder. I got no problem doing this. And get these damn ads out of here. Holy hell. Oh, JP says that he found Tux's legs. Good. Glad to see that. Make sure that Tux gets those. Put them in milk so that we can put them back. Since they're legs, you're going to need a lot of milk. Alright, I need feats. And I'm going to search for improvised. Okay, we've got more here. Improvisational healer, an ad that is really just making me angry. I'm getting a new ad blocker after this. Okay, improvisational healer, improvisational combat focus, improvised defenses, improvised weapon mastery, mythic improvised weapon mastery, improved improvisation, that's a human feat, and improvisation, which is also a human feat. You know, it may be a human feat in Pathfinder, but let's take a look at it. Open that in a new tab. So, improvisation. So, improvisation requires you have 13 intelligence and fast learner and be human, but I can always fudge that last part. You gain a +2 bonus on all skill checks for skills you have no ranks in. Okay, we've already got that. We already have that. That is part of the, well, it's part of Eager Dabbler and Jack of all trades, so we don't need that. Then there's improved improvisation. Your non-proficiency with weapons, armor, and shields is halved. In addition, the bonus on all skill checks with which you have no ranks increases to +4 instead of +2. Again, that sounds like Jack of all trades, except for the whole proficiency thing. Although, I mean, we could do that. I'm curious. So, I think that'd be under combat. Proficiencies. Okay. So, armor proficiency. Most classes grant proficiency to light armor, and more melee classes will, such as soldiers, will give proficiency with heavy armor. If you are wearing armor with which you are not proficient, you take a -4 penalty to your armor class. And since nobody is naturally proficient with powered armor, then that might come in handy. Weapon proficiency. So, most classes grant proficiency with a basic melee weapon and small arms. Combat-oriented classes such as the Solarian and Soldier grant proficiency with more categories of weapons, as noted with their weapon proficiency. All characters are proficient with any natural weapons they might have, such as claws and bites. If you use a weapon with which you are not proficient, you take a -4 penalty to attack rolls with that weapon, and the DC for any saving throws against those weapons' special effects likewise take a -4 penalty. We can absolutely just like copy and paste that. So I can literally just come in here and go copy and paste. And I'm going to format painter that. There we go. So once you hit level 8, you can basically just go ahead and use anything you want. It's not perfect. But if you are an Eldar, if you are Path of the Outcast, if you are level 8 and you come across a suit of armor, pretty much anything short of an Astartes power armor, okay? Because that requires more specific things to work. You can climb inside of it, and that should work. I like that. But now, what do we do at level 16? Because that's a lot, actually. And technically speaking, this requires Intelligence 13, Fast Learner, Improvisation, and Human. Technically speaking, Improvisation is a human, well, it's a human-only feat. Fast Learner is also human. If you are a human, you get a bonus feat at level 1. So everybody gets 1 feat at level 1. you could take Fast Learner. As a bonus feat, you could take Improvisation. That means that technically speaking, at level 3, you could pick up Improved Improvisation so long as you had the intelligence to do so, which I assume that you would. You could have this ability at level 3, and we're giving it at level 8. In that respect, it actually seems a little underpowered. So we don't really have to try and outdo it that much because it's really not as strong as it seems. Okay, what else we got? Improvisational focuses, focus, improvisational defenses. Let's take a look at focus and see what this does. So improvisational focus, this requires catch off guard or throw anything and a base attack of 1. You get a +1 bonus on attack rolls made with an improvised weapon. You're considered proficient with the improvised weapon and considered to have weapon focus with the improvised weapon for the purpose of meeting the prerequisite of feats that specifically select a weapon such as weapon specialization. That's interesting, actually. So, you're considered proficient with the improvised weapon. But not just like any weapon, it says specifically any weapon. Or it says specifically improvised weapon, rather. So it's not like you could pick up an alien rifle and suddenly be proficient with it. Which I think is something that we would more like to see. What about this improvised defense? Really? 503 service temporarily available. Let's try that again. Nope. Same thing. Okay, don't tell me like the wiki is going down. I cannot take these technical issues 2 weeks in a row. I can guarantee that my internet is not going down because I still keep getting video ads. Okay. Okay, fine. It's fine. It's not fine. I'm not okay. Can I look at anything else? Or is it all of them? No, I can look at other things. I'm going to try it one more time. There it is. Okay, we made it work. Alright, improvised defenses. You gain a +1 shield bonus to AC when you are wielding an improvised weapon and have your other hand free. I don't like it. Improvised weapon mastery, no. I need... Actually, you know what? I don't need anything. I do not need anything. You know what I can do? I'm just going to say this. Well, we already have at level 8, you gain your non-proficiency penalty with weapons and armor and shields is halved. Here's what I can do at level 16. You gain proficiency with all weapons and armor. Period. Done. So at level 8, they're halved. At level 16, you just get all of them, and that includes power armor. Which is like something nobody gets by default. So there we go. I like it. I do. I like it a lot. So at level 1, you get to increase all of your bonuses. It's not going to help you out a great deal, but if you could maneuver that to your own advantage, like you're not going to get any passive bonus at level 1, but if you can grant yourself a morale bonus somehow, such as the Envoy's Get 'em improvisation, and I mean, let's take a look at that while we're here. So, Envoy, stop jumping on me. So, Envoy Improvisation, you get that at level 1. Improvisation Details. So you can get these at any level. There's Clever Feint, Dispiriting Taunt, Don't Quit, Expanded Attunement, Get 'em! So, language dependent, mind affecting, sense dependent. As a move action, you can choose one enemy within 60 feet. Until the start of your next turn, you and your allies get a +1 morale bonus on attack rolls made against that enemy. The bonus persists even if the enemy moves beyond 60 feet or out of line of sight or hearing. At the 6th level, you can spend a resolve point to grant this bonus to attack rolls and damage rolls against all enemies who are within 60 feet. So, if you wanted to be an outcast, take an Envoy. And as your very first improvisation, take Get 'em. And so all you gotta do is just point at somebody, and you get a +2 bonus against them. Not only that, but everyone else around you will get a +1 against them. That's really good. I think it's going to work. I think that works good enough. So we're going to go ahead and paint that one in green, and we're going to call that good. So next up, what do we do? Because we're only half done here. Path of the Outcast took a little bit longer than I expected, but we're going to keep on trucking. So after the Path of the Outcast, we get into the lesser known ones. JP says a +1 to humor. Well, if you can give a morale bonus to somebody's sense of humor, then absolutely. So if you, if for your profession you took stand-up comedian, and you happen to be an Eldar outcast, you might make some extra money that night. I mean, these are the kind of things you got to plan long-term for. Because these are things you're not going to think about in normal character creation. You got to say, huh, I get a +1 bonus if I go the Path of the Outcast. If I could apply that to my profession skill, and if I could find enough places that I could do stand-up comedy in, I could be famous across the galaxy. I'd be rich. And if I'm rich, I can do anything I want with money. See? Big brain plans. Okay, so now let's look at some of these lesser ones. The Path of Awakening. First off, we got the Path of Awakening there. Over here on the Lexicanum, we also have the Path of Awakening, so we will look at both of them. So, Path of Awakening. I'm just going to copy this and paste it down there. So let's take a look. Path of Awakening is a path upon which Asinari learn how to closely analyze their surroundings and environments. Those who have mastered this path can notice things that would seem insignificant or impossible to see, even to a normal Eldari. The Path of Awakening is the polar opposite of the Path of Dreaming, as it focuses on looking without rather than within. The Path of Awakening is usually a prelude to the pursuit of the Path of the Artisan. All right, what does the Lexicanum say? Analyze their surroundings, notice things that would seem insignificant or impossible to view. I think it is literally copy-pasted. So, not much to say there. Okay, that's fine. We're just gonna have to, to work with what we got. So, they learn how to closely analyze their surroundings and environments. Those who have mastered this path can notice things that would seem insignificant or impossible. Okay. So, first things first, obviously, we need to notice things. So, right at the gate, we're going to give a... let's see. When it came to the warrior pass, we gave +1 every 2 levels. But for the Path of Awakening... I'm willing to stick with it, actually. So for the Path of Awakening, I'm going to go ahead and... yeah, I'm going to say +1 for every 2 levels. To perception. Now, unfortunately, that's kind of all they really give us. So we're going to have to get really creative here. And we're going to have to look for things that are going to be investigative or observant. Things like that. So, for inspiration... let's look at character themes again. So, there's the Bounty Hunter. They're observant, aren't they? Swift Hunter, you can gain information and insight about, or in a hurry. You can use diplomacy to gather information about a specific individual in half the time. Well, now there's a good idea. We could give bonuses to diplomacy. What else? Grifter, Guard, Mercenary, Outlaw, Quartermaster, Shipbuilder, Spacefarer, Street Rat. There's nothing here that really strikes me as what we're looking for. What is the Wild Warden? So they get theme knowledge. Survival becomes a class skill for them. They get a +1. Protector of the Wild. You harm creatures only when necessary, preferring to knock them unconscious. When you use a weapon that deals lethal damage to a non-lethal... oh. So, when you use a weapon that deals lethal damage to deal non-lethal damage to a creature or creature, animal, plant, or vermin type you've identified, with a successful life sciences check, you don't need to take the standard -4 penalty. Okay, that's fine. No, this does not help us. So what does help us? There's a paranormal investigator up here, actually. So as a theme knowledge, choose diplomacy, life science, mysticism, physical science, or survival. That just happens to be your particular field. Choose a specific paranormal mystery that you and the GM create. Reduce the DC checks to recall knowledge about it. However, at the 6th level, attention to detail. Have the time it takes you to gather information to search an area, or to perform research to take 20 when recalling information or identifying a creature, magic item, or technology. Now that is something we can use. That is something that we can use. Gnawing hunch. You've learned to trust your hunches. If a clue can be found by taking 20 on a perception check, the GM must tell you that such a clue exists, but not necessarily what it is. Once you know a clue exists, you have to find it. Oh, this sounds awful for me. I regret showing you this. And then at 18, Truth Seeker. Organizing evidence about your case and researching it refreshes you and sets you back on your path. Twice per day, you can take 10 minutes to consider and record your findings or look for new insights about them. If you do so, you regain a resolve point. And you can recall knowledge. If instead you take 1 hour, you regain a resolve point and you can gather information. Neither of them counts as resting, though, to recover stamina. I'm actually good to do this. So I think we're going to do like we did with the Outcast. I'm just going to include these. I'm going to say attention to detail. And I'm going to say gnawing hunch. And I'm going to say truth seeker. Also, one thing that I do feel like I need to put on here. Incompatible with paranormal investigator. And Path of the Outcast. I'm going to say incompatible with spacefarer. Just because you can't take both of them at once. Because these things cannot stack. And I mean, even if there's nothing in the rules that says they can't stack, I'm saying they can't stack. So when you're making your character, when you pick your path as an Eldar, you can't take Paranormal Investigator and be on the Path of Awakening. Even if it sounds like it might be useful. Alright, so in that case, I'm going to go back to feats. And I want to do a quick search. Nope, there's nothing in here about gathering information. What about diplomacy? So you can get antagonized with diplomacy, anger a foe, causing them to become off target and take a penalty on skill checks, and that's the only thing that involves diplomacy on this screen. That's kind of disappointing. For what it's worth, though, I could do this. And just say diplomacy. And I think I'm going to actually expand that to gather information. So you're already going to get from attention to detail a bonus on gathering information. Where was that? It was here. So it halves the time it takes you to gain or to gather information, search an area, perform take 20, or to take 20 when recalling information. Additional once per day, if you fail a perception or sense motive check, you can re-roll. So this halves the time it takes you to gather information, which is great. Okay, so what would normally take an hour takes you 30 minutes. But now we get into the actual skills. Gather information. So you must spend at least 1d4 hours canvassing people within a settlement or local region. If you succeed, you learn something about a topic or individual. The GM may determine that some information is simply unknown to the local people. The DCs are as such below. So common facts or rumors are a 10, obscure information is a 20. If it's about a prominent or well-known individual, it's 5 plus their challenge rating. Average is starting at 10, mysterious is at a 15. So we're going to have the time it takes to gather information, and then I'm going to give you a pretty big bonus because at level 8, that's +1 per 2 level. It's a +4 to your diplomacy to gather information. Now, what else can we give them at level 16? Because this is absolutely not combat related, so we don't have to worry about that. We need to focus on perception, information. Changing attitude, no. Culture, no. Wait, actually. That could be useful. Decipher writing. So you can use culture to decipher writing in an unfamiliar language or a message written in an incomplete or archaic form. It takes at least 1 minute to decipher approximately 250 words of writing or fewer. The GM often rolls culture checks to decipher writing in secret. If you succeed the check, you understand the general content of the text. If you fail, you don't understand the text. If you fail the check by 10 or more, you entirely misconstrue the entire meaning of the text. You cannot take 20 on this. However, somebody who's been trained to notice details could probably do this. And this says nothing. It says nothing about languages that you can speak. Here's what I want to do. I'm going to say reduce the DC to decipher writing by 10. In addition, decipher writing can be used to attempt to speak, or to understand rather, understand an unknown language. Oh, excuse me. An unknown spoken language. Okay, I'm going to format this here. So, reduce the DC to decipher writing by 10. In addition, decipher writing can be used to attempt to understand an unknown spoken language. So, if somebody comes at you and they start speaking and you're like a level 16 with the Path of Awakening, you can just say, yeah, okay. I get it. So, I mean, that works. Is it going to be the most useful thing ever? It might be. This is the kind of thing that might save your life someday. And, I mean, we're reducing the DC to decipher writing by 10. So that means that for a simple message, the DC becomes 10. For an intricate, exotic, or very old writing, that becomes a 20. And that means that you gotta basically just roll, I don't know, if you're at level 16 and you've been putting points into culture this entire time, and it's a class skill, that means that you've got 16 ranks in there, plus 3 for it being a class skill. So that's 19. Which means that to decipher even the most intricate or old, you gotta roll a 2. Can you roll a 2 on a D20? You're basically a walking universal translator at that point. Not to mention the fact that you can do this when speaking with people. You may not be able to speak their language, but you can at least understand it. Alright, so there we go. Path of Awakening looks interesting. It does not look like it might be the most desirable because it's not going to be the most exciting one. But in terms of just sheer utility, that's something right there. And JP says, no speaking, only telepathy. Well, I mean, we might get into that. It's possible. Okay. Format painter. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. What's our next path? The next is the Path of the Artisan, which usually follows after the Path of Awakening. So, Path of the Artisan. So, let's see what the wikis have to say about this. Path of the Artisan is a relatively common path for the Asunari. There are many subspecializations along the Path of the Artisan, such as the Path of the Poet, the Path of the Musician, the Path of the Sculptor, the Path of the Painter, and so on. Even within each of these minor paths, there are conflicting schools of style, such as the School of Hithrenair, which teaches the artist should become as much a part of their art as they can be, with its followers often bleaching their skin and marking themselves with stylistic tattoos to show that they have become one with their craft. Over here in the Lexicanum, it says a relatively common path upon the Path of the Artisan. There are many smaller avenues such as the Poet, Sculptor, and so on. Even within these minor paths, there are these hidden schools. Yes, they often bleach themselves and then mark themselves with tattoos. So basically the same thing. So it is all about creativity, crafting, and so on. Now, while this does specify things like the Path of the Poet, the Path of the Musician, the Sculptor, the Painter, and so on, we are not going to get that much into it, okay? There's no way, because I'd have to make like separate trees for all those, and I ain't doing that. What we can do, however, is make a crafting path. And so this will be entirely similar to the path of, well, it'll be a crafting path, okay? It'll be a crafting path. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. All right, so first things first is skills. So I forget how crafting is done. Let's see. Craft computer, craft tech item, repair item, craft drugs, poisons, or medicine, craft food or drink, craft a magic item. Okay. So crafting a computer is going to be under computers. Crafting a tech item is under engineering. So we're probably going to go with engineering, actually. So what we're going to do is where it says up here, 1 for every 2 levels of perception. We're going to come down here and change perception to engineering. Now, let's take a look at the themes and see if anybody falls in line here. And I think that we've got something that might. So maybe Cyberborn? No, because they tune themselves up. We're looking for somebody who can craft. Dream Prophet, Giant Blood, Golden Oldie, Law Officer, Priest, Prisoner, Roboticist, maybe? Crafting Savant. You've mastered the art of putting together technological armor and weapons from a variety of components. While the equipment you constructed certainly has your flair, it's also clear that you can accomplish great feats of construction. While calculating the number of ranks you have and the skill necessary to construct a technological, but not magic or hybrid item, increase that number by 1. This allows you to construct technological equipment up to your character level, plus 1. I think we found it. So at level 12, you get Technical Knack. You have a talent for effectively repairing constructs and starships, whether effecting emergency repairs on a drone or keeping robotic allies in the fight. Once per day, you can cast Make Whole, but you can make the target only, or you can only target construct creatures or damaged technological, not hybrid or magical items. When repairing a starship, you can reduce the time spent to 2 hours of work instead of 5. And then level 18, Master Roboticist. There are a few pieces of technology that you're unfamiliar with, so you are sure to take the time to examine those unique discoveries you happen upon. Up to twice per day, you can spend at least 10 minutes studying a previously undiscovered piece of technology with an item level within 5 levels of your character level, or the wreckage of a significant enemy technological construct. You gain 1 resolve point, does not count as resting. I like it. I think this works for us. Oh, and something I forgot to add up here. Apparently I can't do all those at once. So let me just separate these again because I have to put per paranormal investigator per... There we go. And so the path of the artisan is going to be incompatible with roboticist. Roboticist? Robotist? No, roboticist. I got it right. And so we will be copying these. So, crafting savant. I'm just going to separate these right now because I'm going to need to. Then I'm going to scroll up so that people actually see what I'm doing. So, per roboticist. Then it's going to be technical knack. And at the very end, master roboticist. There we go. Now we just need to figure out what else can we give towards what else can we give towards the path of the artisan? And for that, I kind of want to go back and look at engineering again. So what does the engineers do when they're not crafting things? So let's disguise. Here we go. Engineering. Arm explosives. Assess stability. That's useful. You can use an engineering check to assess a structure or piece of machinery determines its stability, usability, and structural weak points. Takes 1 minute or more. The DC is determined by the GM. Craft tech item. Disabled device. Disabled device is always useful. So, when you disable a device, you can use it to disable a lock, a trap, or a mechanical or technological device to disarm an explosive as long as the device is unattended and you can access it. The amount of time depends on the complexity of the device, but typically requires at least one full action. The DC of the check is determined by me, and is based on the complexity of the device. So you can also use this to rig a device to work normally for a while and then become disabled sometime later. This does increase the DC of the check by 5. If you want to leave no trace, increase the DC by 5 again. If you succeed your check, it can be disabled up to 1 round later for each rank of engineering you have. Okay, well that's interesting. Then there's identifying technology, repairing. Roboticist already has stuff for repairing, so I don't think we need to do that. Identifying technology, though, might come in useful. Although it says identify creature, identify technology. I think that I could combine both of those. I mean, we're already boosting them because you're getting +1 to your levels of engineering, which I can't spell apparently. There we go. So I don't know if we necessarily need to do that. What about feats? Do we have any crafting feats? Master Crafter. That lets you craft items in half of the normal time. And that is it. So it requires you to have at least 5 ranks in any of the following: computers, engineering, life science, mysticism, physical science, or profession. Which means that this would be restricted normally to a level 5 character, but we've already kind of got that filled in. So at level 8, how about Master Crafter? And we're going to specify engineering. So how well does this synergize, I wonder? So, at level 6 you get Crafting Savant. That allows you to craft anything at +1 level. Then, with Master Crafter, choose one skill. Yes, when you craft items using that, it takes half of the normal time. So, now, if you take the Path of the Artisan, you can craft 1 level higher, and you can craft in half of the time. Which is perfect. I mean, you are an artisan. This is all fitting in. And JP says, is Warhammer the largest module you've done? Absolutely, and without a doubt. Like, I'm not looking at my videos right now. I don't know necessarily how long I have been doing this module. It has been months, and we are not done yet. Every time I turn around, there is something else that we need to do. We still have a lot of paths for the Eldar to do. We're only on the artist right now. There's still That is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 other paths that we know of. Because if we look over here, it says path of the player. Is that even on our list? I didn't even cross-reference this one. Hold on a second. I'm not adding any more at this point. So, Path of Command, we've got it. Path of the Dreamer, we've got it. Path of the Mariner, we've got it. Path of the Outcast, we've got it. Obviously, we just did that one. Path of the Player, we don't. Path of the Savant, we don't. Path of Service, we do. Path of the Warrior, we already did. And then it says right here, unknown paths. Some paths must exist despite their name not being known, because of known cracked world Eldar that can't be on any of the known paths. By definition, these known unknown paths can only be listed by what is known about their followers. For example, Grav Tank Crews. Eldar have a variety of grav tanks based on the Falcon chassis. Their crews aren't Guardians, and aren't on the Path of the Warrior or the Path of the Mariner. Well, what the hell am I supposed to do with that? We could be here all day making up whatever paths that we want. And since I have incompatibilities here, like there's things that are listed on this that are not on here. And then there's things like the Path of Damnation that are not listed over here. I'm thinking that perhaps I should cross-reference these two wikis and only do the ones that they agree on. So like Path of Damnation, is this really something that we want? Path of Damnation. Little is known about the Path of Damnation other than it exists. It is the Oceanari refuse to speak about it among themselves, and certainly not with outsiders. What is known is that after the Craft World Eldari believe that their malevolent Drukhari cousins chose to walk this path after the fall, unwittingly or not, it can be surmised that the Path of Damnation allows an Eldari to benefit from the same psychically protected benefits as other Oceanari paths. This is essentially the Drukhari path. So, like, this is by default the path that every Drukhari walks. You know what? Afuera! It's gone. Now, what else do we have? The Botanist? Is there a Botanist over here? We've got Artisan. These do appear to be in alphabetical order. We've got Artisan, and then it goes to Command. There is no Botanist. Afuera! Okay, Path of Command, Path of the Dreamer, Path of Grief. We've got those, so they're good. Path of the Healer. Path of the Healer is not in here. That being said, though, I think I'm going to leave that one in there because that will let me make like an entire medical path. And we can absolutely do that. So it can stay, okay? Path of the Mariner, we've got it. Path of the Outcast, obviously. Path of the Player. It is a path in which Eldar keep legends and myths alive through dance, spelled with an S apparently. Song and art. Honestly, that sounds a whole lot like the Path of the Artisan. Except this is all about like culture and stuff. While we could do it, I don't think we need to. Path of the Savant is a path in which Eldar studies science and history and distributes their knowledge. We don't have that one on here. The Path of the Savant isn't even in this one. And it just sounds like you know things. So, Path of the Savant, Nah, we're not doing it. Path of Service, we've already got it. It can stay. Path of the Seer, we already discussed. Path of the Warrior, it's fine. Path of Shaping. What was that one again? So it is a specialization of the Path of the Artisan, closely linked to the Path of the Seer. It is undertaken by those who become bone singers. Skilled artisans who are part psyker, part artist, and part engineer. They train their innate psychic powers to create and mend all constructs of wraith bone. Okay. While this is super cool, it's super not needed. So they are part psyker, artist, and engineer. So part psyker. We've already got that. Okay, it's part of being an Eldar. All Eldar are psychers. You roll, and if you land in the red or the orange, you re-roll. If we come back to weapons, we can see that on our chart here, Alpha being the highest, it's in violet. We've got blue, cyan, green, yellow. Which means that if you land anywhere in here, you re-roll. So your minimum is going to be a row. So you got to be part psyker. You will be part artist. I mean, define artist for me. Art is, at its core, subjective. Technically, this entire live stream is a work of art. This module that I'm doing is a work of art. I'm creating it. It is an aspect of my own innovation, my own creativity, my own imagination. This is art. Now, does it belong in the Louvre? The Smithsonian? Would I even hang this on my refrigerator with a magnet? No. So this is entirely subjective. And part engineer. Okay? Well, the path of the artisan is already an engineer. Everything we're doing about it is engineering. So the path of the shaper, really the only thing that this specifies is that they work with wraithbone. I can write into the rules when we introduce the material of wraithbone that it requires a psychic ability to use, and bam, just like that, we have pretty much restricted this to the Eldar. Now, does that mean that you could get a human psyker? And maybe that human psyker would be able to work with wraithbone? The answer is maybe. I don't know in the Warhammer lore. In fact, maybe I should send like a message to Luton. Maybe he'd answer me. I don't know if there's anywhere in the lore where they have had a human psyker try to manipulate wraithbone. It's possible that it's possible. And so having this be restricted to the path of shaping would then be wrong. So path of shaping is out. It's out. It's gone. Path of the Thought Talker. A Thought Talker is an Oceanary telepath who is trained to function as both an interpreter between the Eldari and other intelligent species, as well as an ambassador to these things beyond their craft world. A Thought Talker does not need to be known to their interlocutors' spoken languages. They simply transmit the meanings directly into the other's minds using a conceptual language that any intelligent being can understand, as long as their minds and conceptions of reality are not too radically different from that of the Eldari. How about this? Why don't we go back to the Path of Awakening? At level 16, reduce the DC to decipher writing by 10. In addition, this can be used to understand unknown spoken languages. If we just make this little modification here to communicate in unspoken or unknown spoken languages. This means that the Path of Awakening would let you walk up to somebody regardless of language, roll the dice, and communicate with them, even if you don't speak the same language, meaning that we can take the whole telepathy aspect, more or less throw it out the window, and we've already got it done. And so what we're left with is the Path of the Artisan, which we're almost done with, Command, Dreamer, Grief, Healer, Mariner, Scholar, and Service. That trimmed it down a little bit. And then the unknowns, of course, we're not going to be bothering with. So that helped a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. Even so, is Warhammer the largest mod that I've done? Absolutely. And it's not stopping anytime soon. Alright, we still need to have one more thing in here for the Artisan. And we know what they do. It's possible... You know, I do wonder. I want to look at something. Do we actually get like an explanation of what Wraithbone is? Go away. Okay, Wraithbone. It is the primary construction material used by the Ascianari, Crapworld Eldar, staple of their psychotechnical engineering, a form of crystallized psychic energy that can exist as a solid in real space, brought forth from the warp and shaped by an Eldari concentrating his thoughts and intent upon it. All Eldari are able to psychically influence and control Wraithbone to a certain extent. For instance, most Eldari walking the path of the Artisan will use Wraithbone in order to create pieces of art, musical instruments, or any other tools they desire. However, truly complex constructions such as functional weapons or whole void ships can only be brought into existence by Eldari bone singers, specialized craftsmen who focus on undertaking and mastering the intricacies of creating, growing, and shaping the Wraithbone through the application of their innate psychic power. So already what I've discovered is that it is a crystal. That's important. Like, a lot of this is just kind of fluff. But for me, from my point of view, when I look at how I can implement this, knowing that it's a crystal helps. When and where the Eldari first started using Wraithbone is unknown, though most Imperial scholars assume it was in the distant past, long before humanity had even fully evolved to sentience. It is used to create the craft worlds the Eldar, all their edifices, their tanks and other vehicles, robotic constructs such as the Wraithguard and Wraith Lords, as well as their individual weapons and armor. It is a psychic conductor and thus provides not only the structure and armor for the things built of it, but also the power distribution and communication system, since Wraithbone carries psychic energy the way wire or fiber optic carries electricity or photons. Wraithbone can also naturally generate a psychic shield that protects the occupants of any spacecraft made from the material from the predations of the entities of the warp, much like an Imperial Gellar field, except you have to sacrifice less psychers. It was this psychic shielding property of Wraithbone that protected the souls of the inhabitants of the crap world from the birth of the Chaos God Slaanesh, which destroyed so much of their race. Wraithbone is a psychoplastic material that is highly resilient to damage, capable of limited self-repair. It and other building materials of the Eldari will grow and react more like living tissue than building materials of other intelligent species, save for the Tyranids' bioconstructs and the necrodermis of the Necrons' living metal. That is the base of the majority of the Necron technology. Interesting. So perhaps... I don't remember what we put down for the Wraith Guard. Do they have fast healing? Or do they have just regular healing? They are constructs. Wraith Sight doesn't actually say anything, but since they're considered a race, I mean, I assume that we can just we can allow them to heal as normal. Here's what I want to do. I will need to draw up some rules for Wraithbone, because if everything made out of Wraithbone heals on its own, then we'll need to have some special rules for that. However, at level 16, here's what I think I want to do. I want to allow them to make Wraithbone. So I'm going to say, use psychic energy to convert it's going to be, I believe it's UBP? UPB? Universal Polymer Base, I think? Starjammer. Equipment, I want, let's see, trade goods. Drugs, magic items, other equipment and services. Bonding epoxies. Tools, tents, fine art. Here we go. UPB. Universal Polymer Base, yeah. UPB into Wraithbone. And so that would allow you to repair things that were made out of Wraithbone or build things made out of Wraithbone. And again, we'll have to go through and make rules for Wraithbone. And I'm not sure how we're going to handle the conversion yet. So more than likely what's going to happen here is that you will be able to make some kind of roll as a psyker. And keep in mind that, you know, when we did the power weapons, we specified that with a force weapon, you get a certain number of dice. So, for example, a force weapon is allowed to channel 7 dice, you know, at the lowest level. 7 dice of damage into whatever they're hitting. Because that's what force weapons do. Where was our force weapon? The Executioner? No. Manta Blaster, Mirror Sword, those are just power blades. We had a force weapon somewhere in here. The Witchblade? I think this was actually it, yeah. This is it. This was the force weapon. So, it deals a certain number of dice on hit. So it does D4s, D6s, D8s, D10s, depending on what level it is. It only carries 1 charge, it uses 1 charge, it charges after a certain number of turns, and it can discharge all of that power in 1 turn. In this case, if you were a Row class Psyker, it would take 17 turns to charge this thing. And it would allow you to discharge, at the lowest level, 7 D4s. Keep in mind that the Witchblade... Where was it? You can get a Witchblade at level 5. So being able to discharge 28 damage at level 5 is not insignificant. Okay, so that means that if we were to say make it a D6, okay, if we made it say a D6, it would allow you to sit down and convert, well, 7 times 6 is going to be 42, so it would allow you to convert 42 UPB into Wraithbone, which would then need to be fashioned. Now, here's where we go back to crafting rules. And crafting is where things always get super, super complicated. Because crafting is really, really hard to balance. And it's why games like Dungeons & Dragons include crafting, but try really, really hard to dissuade you from crafting. In tabletop games like Pathfinder and Dungeons & Dragons, a really good crafter is as dangerous to a campaign as, say, a divination wizard. Now, a divination wizard is really dangerous because in a campaign, there's going to be secrets, there's going to be plot points, there's going to be all kinds of things that you as players are meant to discover. A divination wizard is basically just allowed to ask the DM directly anything they want about the campaign. And the DM is forced into a position of either allow them to use the abilities that they have trained and earned, or to tell them straight up no, and thus invalidate all the choices they have made. It's a really bad situation. At the same time, if you have a really good crafter on your team, you can design an encounter for a party of a certain level. But if you have somebody who's really good at crafting and they can develop like a really, really powerful weapon, you can have, like, say, a level 5 party going up against gnolls and ogres and things, but you can have an artificer who has this uberly powerful magic weapon they managed to put together, who can go through and literally cleave things in half. So because of that, crafting rules have been made to be really, really super complicated, because they really do not want you using them. I, however, would absolutely love to see people do more crafting, and I have written my own set of crafting rules before. In this case, crafting a tech item says if you have enough ranks in engineering, you can craft or create technological devices or items, including computers. However, this does not really give any kind of information on how exactly you do that. And let's see. You can, if you have enough ranks in computers, you can build computers. Essentially, when it comes to crafting, craft magic item, there were rules in here and I had to pull them up for another player just recently. Where were they? Now I don't remember. But anyway, what we can do is we can say that if you can convert UPB into Wraithbone, it will allow you to make Wraithbone constructs. And so this would allow you to build a Wraithguard in case you had, say, another Eldar and maybe they died, but you still have their Spirit Stone. You could build a Wraithguard body and put them into it. Which is something really useful. I don't know where those rules would have been. And now it's kind of bothering me because I really wish I knew where they were. Compatibility, conditions, downtime. I think it's in downtime. Craft. Nope. Does not show anything inside of here for crafting. Alright, well, I'll find it later. Otherwise, I have my own rules for crafting, and I can use those. Which, my rules for crafting are probably better. So, my rules for crafting were as such, and I can't put them on the screen because they're on my other screen, but I said crafting normal items can be done with universal polymer bases, or UPBs. When crafting an item, first determine how much UPB that you need. For items with bulk, you require an equivalent amount of UPB, that is 1000 UPB per bulk. Items with light bulk are the equivalent of 100 UPB. Crafting is done using the engineering skill. The DC needed to craft the item is as below. For weapons, I set a DC 9 plus the weapon's level, so that caps out at, 29. For armor, same thing, DC 9 plus the armor bonus. That can actually go a lot higher. For regular items, it is DC 9 plus the item level. For magic items, we don't need to worry about that. And for starship equipment, it is a DC 19 plus the build points. And that gets really super expensive because that's a lot of UPBs. For tracking progress, determine the amount of materials being used. For example, crafting a Corona laser rifle. One bulk requires 1000 UPB. It is a level 6 weapon, so the DC is 9 plus the weapon level for 15. You make an engineering check, subtract the DC from the roll. If the result is 0 or lower, crafting has failed. A critical failure destroys all materials. If the result is positive, multiply by 10, subtract from the materials needed for crafting. This represents 1 day's work. Repeat as necessary until crafting is complete. This is essentially a conversion of the traditional Pathfinder crafting rules, where you would calculate an item's value in gold. You would make your rolls, subtract that from the value of the item you're creating, and once you have completely paid for it, essentially, and in Pathfinder you get to do so at like half the cost. Once you hit 0, you've crafted your item, whatever it may be. So in this case, you simply get to keep making checks, and if you're making a level 6 weapon, it costs 1000 UPB per bulk. So you start at 1000 if you keep making your rolls. If it's a DC 15, you roll higher than the DC of 15. You roll, say, an 18. You subtract 15 from 18, that's 3. Multiply 3 by 10, that is 30. Subtract that from the 1000 of your materials. You're now sitting at 970, and you're good. Now that being said, that sounds like a really bad deal. But you also have to consider that if you are, say, one of these artisans, and you're on this path, first off, by the time you are level 16, and you are able to start making stuff out of wraith bone, you would have, hopefully, 16 ranks into your engineering by default. It's going to be a class skill. That's going to make it 19. As a Path of the Artisan, you will get 1 point for every 2 levels of engineering. So that's going to be another 8. That brings you up to a plus 27. A plus 27. And so, when we're making like a tier 6 weapon here, out of Wraithbone, the DC is 15, but you have a plus 27. Do I have my roll 20 handy? I actually kind of do. And so nobody look. Okay? No, nobody look at this. Ignore this. Okay. So, if the DC is 15, and we're trying to make something out of Wraithbone, so we got like a plus 27, I'm going to type in here 1d20 plus 27. And this is ignoring any other morale bonuses, any other equipment bonuses, any other bonuses that we could possibly have to our engineering. I just rolled a crit. That is 47. Now, on a crit, I mean, that might be, or have extra bonuses with it. But, I'm going to say this. Let's forget the crit for a minute and just say 47 minus the DC, that's 15. That is still 32. 32 times 10 is 320. So we take our 1,000 UPB, or in this case 1,000 Wraithbone that you've had to convert from UPB, subtract that, or subtract 320, that comes down to 680. You are like, you're close to 1/3 done already. And the odds of you actually failing this by 5 or more are infinitesimal. It's like impossible. You can only critically fail. So just don't critically fail, okay? And JP says surviving till level 16 is the trick. Well, you ain't wrong about that, but fortunately, I'm actually a little bit lenient there. I will explain that to my gaming party when we get to the actual game. In fact, I think I already did. So, I have crafting rules. The crafting rules I feel are incredibly fair, and if anybody actually wanted to use them, I would encourage it. But crafting is usually, it's kind of frowned upon. But in this case, using psychic energy to convert UPB into Wraithbone means that you would have to be able to convert enough UPB into Wraithbone to craft in the first place. If you would need to have 1,000 UPB, you would need to have 1,000 Wraithbone. So it may take you several days to fully convert everything, and then several more days to actually craft the item. But once it was done, it would be a thing of beauty. And to that point, I actually did have a player once in a Pathfinder game who wanted to be a crafter. And he really went all the way on this one. He put all of his points into crafting, specifically into armor crafting. Not only was he a fantastic crafter, they bought a wagon, a regular 4-wheel wagon. They reinforced the wagon. They put an actual furnace on the wagon. And what they did is they said, you know what? Travel time is downtime. The only people who cannot take downtime were the people who are driving. So what they did is they said, it takes us X number of days to travel from one town to the next town. That is downtime that our crafter can use on the wagon. And so while they're traveling, he is crafting on the back of the wagon. He's got a furnace up there. He's got an anvil up there. It's pulled by like 4 horses. And so while they're traveling, he's banging on metal. It can be done. So if you want to be a crafter and you don't mind being an Eldar, this is like the best crafting you will ever get. And you may be able to make some things that you're not even going to find in the game because you can't buy Wraithbone stuff. You will never be able to buy that. At best, you'll be able to find it. And even then, you pretty much have to be a psyker to use it. So, this could be very good for that kind of player. Alright though, so I think we can call the Path of the Artisan done. It's going to be a very interesting one. It's going to have a lot going for it. Just because the potential for this one is like unlimited. You can do so much with it. Like, playing this game, we could start off with a regular ship, and if the Eldar, who is a Path of the Artisan, wanted to, they could potentially use their crafting to convert the ship itself into Wraithbone by simply crafting new pieces and replacing them. The end result being, the ship could actually end up being like a very small craft world. That is something that no rule is prepared for, and few DMs would be prepared for either. Beware the crafters. They can literally ruin the entire game. Okay, that being said though, we are out of time for today. So we got three more of the paths done. We literally excised like 3 or 4 of them from our list, so we don't have to worry about that. That just leaves us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more to go. And if I could spend less time rambling about previous games, we might actually get through more than half of them. After that, we'll have to work on probably the whole Psyker system because, well, no, after that we gotta go back and do armor for the Aspect Warriors. One thing at a time. One thing at a time. So, that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and take a break here. I got other stuff I gotta get done, so I gotta go do that. You got other stuff you gotta get done. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure you've got things to do. So, I will leave it here. I am so glad that you all came out today, especially since things started a little bit rough. We started in private mode for some reason, so the stream was completely undiscoverable. Fortunately, I fixed that. But if you've enjoyed this and you want to see more of it, go ahead and subscribe to the channel because I get to do these every Sunday and I enjoy doing it and I look forward to it. If you hit the subscribe button, you may as well already hit the bell button because you're already there, okay? It's right next to the subscribe button. It's just like 1 extra click. Well, no, 2 extra clicks. Because you got to hit the button and then you got to select how many notifications you want. I suggest all of them. But it's up to you. If you know somebody else who's also into tabletop gaming, or they're into Warhammer 40k, or they just like long, it's like long live streams like this, share this video with them. They might enjoy it. But otherwise though, if you just like me, you like what I'm doing, leave a like on the stream, leave a comment down below after the stream, or join the Discord, especially if you want to play with us. We're not doing this one, obviously. This one's not even done. We are starting a brand new Star Trek game. That should be kicking off this week. I don't know if it's going to be done live or it's going to be pre-recorded. It's probably going to be pre-recorded because a lot of it will have to be edited. So that should be starting, and maybe next week I'll be able to get it out. Or not next week, but the week after. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. So, if you want to have any part of that, make sure you join the Discord, hit us up in the Behind the Screen channel, let me know what your availability is so I can add you to the list. And, yeah, hopefully I'll see you there. So, I hope you've had fun. I had fun. I hope to see you next time. I hope to see you at some point during the week too, maybe in my other videos, but otherwise, until then, take care.